What if there's no justice for you? Or what if justice is incomplete? In this work I've done since my brothers died, I've talked with a lot of patients and families over the phone and sometimes in person who fall into one of these categories where they don't get any justice at all, or their justice, their victory is not complete. And these people are in a lot of pain. Examples of what I'm talking about might be a family that was ashamed about filing a lawsuit, and or that's not how they were raised, and they didn't file a lawsuit, and the statute of limitations passed, but those questions they had about the care, about the death, they went unanswered, and they didn't go away. In fact, they festered, and they stayed in their hearts and their souls, and these people are in pain. Or maybe the patient or family did try to pursue litigation, but maybe they couldn't find a lawyer, or if they did find a lawyer, maybe the case was dismissed or lost at trial. Lots of things can happen, and a lot of people don't get justice, and these people many times have a tremendous amount of grief and anger. Maybe they tried to talk to the state medical board or talk to the media, and again, nobody listened, and this adds to their grief. There's also times where patients and families are successful in a lawsuit. They get money, but that's all they get. They don't get the emotional healing, the closure. They don't get an apology. They don't hear from the doctors ever again. They don't hear how medicine's improved or might improve, so it doesn't happen to someone else. Those folks have incomplete justice. Both sets of people, those who get incomplete justice and those who get no justice at all, man, it can be a tough road for them. They're carrying an enormous weight. They're in a lot of pain, and for many of these people, every day feels like nobody's listening to them. And when I talk to them, sometimes it's very hard to get these people off the phone because they're just in such pain. And what I try to tell these folks, and I'll try to tell you in this video snippet, is you need to find an outlet, a positive outlet for that pain and grief, or the pain and grief will consume you. You either get a handle on it or it will handle you. And there are many ways you can do this, try to find, bring good out of bad. But the specific example or specific suggestion I'm going to make to you is, if you're not successful in litigation, you can't find a lawyer, or you didn't pursue that, and the media and the medical boards won't listen, then one thing you may consider is joining the patient safety movement. There are lots of people who joined the patient safety movement because they were trying to bring good out of their bad. And the patient safety movement is a very vibrant movement in the United States and around the world. And they're always looking for new people with a variety of talents to help out, to help make medicine safer. And this may be the way that you can share your story, that you can use your story to bring about improvements that you otherwise can't make happen. So consider joining the patient safety movement. There's lots of organizations at the federal, state, and local level. You go on any major search engine, type in patient safety, and there's lots of them. Consider joining one of them. Consider getting involved. If, however, you can't find a group that's to your liking, or there's nothing in your area, consider starting your own. Seriously, consider starting your own patient safety group. Almost every good or great patient safety group got started by one person, one family, again, trying to bring good out of their bad. And it's never been easier or cheaper to do it. With the internet, being able to set up websites cheaply and send emails and social media, you can do it very cheaply for not much money, if any money at all. So consider that option. And that was part of my option. Again, we were successful in litigation, but at the time we had incomplete justice. We didn't, we got money, but we didn't get any answers or acknowledgement at the time of settlement. We didn't hear from the doctors and nurses. We never heard how anyone owned the mistake or they were going to fix it. So it was incomplete justice, and that sense of incomplete justice is what fueled me to do SorryWorks, to set up SorryWorks, to make it the organization it is today, that we literally go out and train doctors and nurses how to stay connected, how to empathize, and when necessary, apologize after something goes wrong. And now, of course, with this effort, we're training patients and families, so it's full circle. But this work in Sorry Works really became full circle for me in summer of 2010, because you remember if you watched all these videos, or if you've read the ebook, I started all this with my brother's story, talking about what happened to my brother Jim, how my brother Jim died in a Cincinnati, Ohio hospital, and the errors that took his death. If you remember, however, I never mentioned the name of the hospital. I never named the hospital, and I do that because the name is not important. The name of the hospital is not important, because the errors that took Jim could have happened in any hospital or any medical setting in the United States of America. This work is not a vendetta against the hospital. So I've always, whenever I do work like this, when I give a speech, I always start with Jim's story, but I never name the hospital. But secretly, I had hoped that someone would put two and two together, would listen to the story, and hey, Doug's from Cincinnati, and somehow look up the case, and that maybe connect me with the hospital and we'd be reconciled. But I never expected it to happen. Well, I was giving a speech in summer of 2010 in Northern California, and Jim Conway from the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, the IHI, which is probably the world's leading patient safety organization, and Jim is way up in that organization. Jim's a real superstar in patient safety. Jim was in the audience. He was giving a speech that day too, and afterwards Jim grabbed me and said, "Hey, what was the name of the hospital where your brother died? I'm just curious." And I said, "Jim, that's not important. I don't name the hospital. It's not a vendetta." He said, "No, just tell me the name. I'm just curious." So I told him it's Jewish Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio. They're in Kenwood. They're in the suburbs of Cincinnati, up in Kenwood by Blue Ash, Montgomery, and Indian Hill. And Jim said, "Really, Jewish?" I said, "Yes, Jewish Hospital." He said, "Well, you may be surprised to know they just got bought out. The hospital was just purchased by Catholic Health Partners, which is also based in Cincinnati." And Jim said, "Look, I have a lot of friends and colleagues in Catholic Health Partners. I think they'd like to know about the story, and may I share it with them, and maybe they'll want to reach out to you." And I said, "Jim, sure, that's fine." I never expected anything to come of it, but boy, was I surprised. Because a couple months later, I was actually back home in Cincinnati. Remember, I live in St. Louis now. I was visiting Cincinnati with my small children and my wife, and we had put the kids to bed. My wife actually had gone to bed too, and I was staying up late one night just checking some emails because we've been doing fun stuff all day long. And my mom was still up casually watching TV, and one of the emails was from Jana Dean, Vice President of Patient Safety for Catholic Health Partners. And she told me that she had been contacted by her friend and colleague, Jim Conway, and she had researched my case and learned that this case happened in their now new hospital. And she wanted to know if she could contact me. She wanted to see if we could talk. And I said, sure. And a week later or so, she called me, and she apologized for what happened to Jim. We talked about the case. She asked me how my mom and dad are doing. She asked me how I'm doing, and we talked about the work I'm doing. And she said she wanted to continue the discussion. A few weeks later, she came out to New Jersey. I was giving a speech at that time for a hospital out there. She wanted to hear me speak about Sorry Works, and she flew out at her own expense and heard me give that speech. And we actually had dinner the night before and got to know each other. And it was a very nice dinner, and it was really just nice to get to know each other as people. She's a very nice person. A week later, she flew me home to Cincinnati at the expense of Catholic Health Partners, and I got to meet with her again and also meet with her boss, Mike Conley, who was the CEO of Catholic Health Partners. Mike, in that meeting, apologized to me and talked about how medicine has changed and how it's improved and what they're doing differently today to handle situations like the situation that took my brother Jim. A few months later, they flew me home again to go to Jewish Hospital, because I had never actually gone in Jewish Hospital. When Jim was there and ultimately died, I was living in St. Louis, and I simply had gotten updates from my parents over the phone, including the news of his ultimate demise. So they brought me to Jewish Hospital. I sat down and talked with some of the senior physicians and the CEO of Jewish Hospital and some of their other leadership from the region, and we talked about Jim's death. We talked about the ways the hospital has learned from his mistake and how these mistakes will hopefully never occur again. And going forward, I'm involved now with Catholic Health Partners' efforts to implement disclosure and apology across their entire system, and they're a very big system. And I'm also a member of one of their patient safety committees. So it's been a wonderful experience. It's been full circle. It's been closure and healing. It's taken our incomplete justice and turned it into complete justice for us. So I share this with you to hopefully kind of wrap this part of the story up, but also to give you lots of thoughts and ideas, especially for those who are struggling with no justice or incomplete justice. Think about other ways that you can take your anger and your grief and channel it in a positive way that not only helps you, helps you move on with your life, but also can make the world a better place in memory of your injury or the injury or death of your loved one. It's the right thing to do. It's how you get to where you ultimately need to be. And I hope these thoughts have been helpful for you.